Who let this black kid into my classroom? Professor Richard Hartwell's voice cut through the lecture hall like a blade. 23 years of tenure, 6 figures annually, published in journals most mathematicians only dreamed about. Untouchable. You, back row, the black one, stand up. Isaiah Parker rose slowly from his seat. 19 years old. Silent. His worn backpack hung from one shoulder, the strap frayed from 3 years of daily use. Look at this, class. Hartwell's laugh was sharp, performative. A black face in advanced number theory. Tell me, Mr. Parker, did your welfare caseworker fill out your application, or did some diversity committee drag you here to meet their quota? 40 students watched. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Hartwell grabbed the chalk, his knuckles white against the worn wood. I'm going to write an impossible equation on this board. PhDs have failed to solve it. Geniuses have quit trying. And you, ghetto trash, you're going to prove exactly why black kids don't belong in real mathematics. The chalk began to scratch against the blackboard. What Hartwell did next would cost him everything. His career, his reputation, the deepest secret he'd buried for 24 years. Comment where you're listening from. Subscribe to channel. Let me tell you who Isaiah Parker really was. Because Professor Hartwell had no idea. Not a single clue. And that ignorance would be the very thing that destroyed him. Isaiah was 19 years old, a sophomore at Whitmore University, the youngest student in advanced number theory by 2 full years. Every single day he sat in that same back row corner, the spot where nobody looked twice, where nobody asked questions, where nobody expected anything. He never raised his hand in class, never volunteered answers, never showed anyone what he could really do. His homework was correct, but unremarkable. B+ average. Nothing special. Nothing threatening. That was intentional. See, Isaiah had learned something early in life. A lesson his grandmother had taught him when he was just 7 years old, standing in her cramped kitchen on the south side of Chicago, watching her work 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. "Don't let them see everything you got, baby," she'd said, her hands wrinkled and worn from decades of cleaning other people's houses. "Save something for when you really need it." Being seen had a cost. Being noticed meant being targeted. In his neighborhood, in his schools, in every single space where black boys were expected to fail, Isaiah had learned to make himself small, invisible, a ghost in plain sight. But here's what nobody knew. Mini cliffhanger. Isaiah Parker had been solving graduate-level mathematics since he was 15 years old. Self-taught, no expensive tutor, no prep school, no $1,000 test prep courses, no connections to powerful people who could open doors. Just him. Late nights in a cold apartment. Instant coffee that tasted like cardboard. And a stack of old notebooks he'd found in his grandmother's attic when he was 13 years old. Those notebooks changed everything. They didn't belong to Isaiah. They belonged to his father, a man named James Parker, a man who died when Isaiah was only 6 years old. Isaiah barely remembered him. Just fragments, pieces of a puzzle he could never quite complete. A warm hand on his shoulder when he was scared. The smell of chalk dust on worn clothing. A deep voice saying words that had burned into his memory forever, even though he was too young to understand them. Numbers don't lie, son. People do. That was it. That was all he had of his father. A sentence, a feeling, a ghost. His mother never talked about James. Whenever Isaiah asked questions, she would change the subject. Her eyes would go distant and vacant. Her voice would tighten with old pain. And eventually, Isaiah just stopped asking. His grandmother wasn't much better. She'd just shake her head slowly and say, "Your daddy was a good man. The world wasn't good to him." For 13 years, that's all Isaiah knew about his father. He was good. The world was cruel. End of story. Then he found the notebooks, mini cliffhanger, hidden in the attic, covered in 2 decades of dust, waiting for him like a message in a bottle thrown across an ocean of time. Isaiah saw pages and pages of equations, proofs that seemed to speak a language he didn't yet understand, theories that made his young mind spin, mathematical ideas that he couldn't even begin to grasp. And margin notes, hundreds of them, written in handwriting that felt strangely, impossibly familiar. Isaiah didn't know it then, but he was looking at his father's mind, his father's dreams, his father's unfinished work. It took years to decode, years to understand. Isaiah would come home from school, ignore his actual homework, and study those notebooks instead, teaching himself, piece by piece, symbol by symbol. Late into the night while his mother worked the overnight shift at a hospital, cleaning floors for $12 an hour. By 15, he wasn't just reading his father's work anymore. He was continuing it. By 17, he was solving problems that most graduate students couldn't touch. By 19, he was quietly, invisibly, one of the most talented young mathematicians at Whitmore University. And nobody knew. Not his professors, not his classmates, not even his mother, who was working herself to death just to help him stay in school. Isaiah kept his gift hidden, protected, saved for when he really needed it. He didn't know that moment was coming. He didn't know a 24-year-old secret was about to explode into his life. He didn't know his father's past was waiting for him in that Whitmore classroom. Mini cliffhanger. Now, let me tell you about the man at the front of that classroom, Professor Richard Hartwell, the man who thought he was untouchable. Hartwell was 58 years old, tenured for 23 years, published in journals that most mathematicians only dreamed about. His name appeared in textbooks. His theories were taught in classrooms across the country. His reputation was supposedly built on brilliance. He ran his classroom like a kingdom, and he was the king. Students called his course the graveyard, where GPAs went to die, where dreams got buried, where ambitious young minds learned their place in the academic hierarchy. Hartwell liked it that way. He enjoyed the fear, the power, the control. He prided himself on what he called maintaining standards. That was his favorite phrase. He said it at every faculty meeting, every department review, every single time someone questioned his methods. I'm maintaining standards, weeding out students who don't belong. He never specified what don't belong meant. He didn't have to. Everyone understood the subtext. 3 formal complaints of racial bias in 5 years. 3 black students who said Hartwell targeted them, humiliated them, drove them out of the program. All 3 complaints dismissed. Insufficient evidence. Hartwell had friends in the administration. Powerful friends. The kind who made problems disappear like they never existed. Mini cliffhanger. But Hartwell had a secret. One he'd been hiding for 24 years. And it was about to walk right through his door in the form of a quiet 19-year-old kid from the south side of Chicago. Every few years, a student would slip through Hartwell's filters. Someone who didn't fit his image of excellence. Someone who looked different. Sounded different. Came from the wrong neighborhood. Had the wrong skin color. And every single time, Hartwell found a way to put them in their place. A public question designed to embarrass. A problem meant to humiliate. A grade that pushed them toward the exit. It always worked. For 2 decades, it always worked. The students would doubt themselves, drop out, transfer, disappear, and Hartwell would smile that cold smile. Standards maintained, kingdom protected. He had no idea that Isaiah Parker was different. that this quiet black kid from the South Side carried something Hartwell couldn't even imagine. A gift inherited from a man Hartwell had destroyed 24 years ago. A man named James Parker, Isaiah's father. October 15th, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, room 248, advanced number theory. Isaiah walked into that classroom like every other day, backpack over one shoulder, eyes down, invisible by design. He took his usual seat. Back row, far corner, the chair that faced the exit. Old habit. Always know where the door is. 40 other students filled the room, mostly juniors and seniors. Mostly white. Mostly from families that could afford Whitmore's $50,000 annual tuition without blinking. Isaiah was the exception. Scholarship kid. Work-study program. Night shifts at a warehouse downtown to cover what financial aid didn't. Ramen for dinner 4 nights a week. He didn't complain. He just showed up. Did the work. Stayed invisible. Professor Hartwell was already at the front when Isaiah sat down. Chalk in hand. A strange energy crackling in the room like electricity before a storm. "Good afternoon, class." Hartwell's voice had an edge to it, a sharpness that made students sit up straighter in their chairs. "Today, we're going to have some fun." A few students exchanged nervous glances. Fun in Hartwell's class usually meant someone was about to suffer. Mini cliffhanger. Hartwell smiled. The kind of smile that made you want to run. "I have a challenge problem. Something special. Something I've kept in reserve for years, waiting for just the right moment." He walked to the board slowly. Drew a long line across it with the chalk. "Anyone who solves this equation gets automatic extra credit. Enough to guarantee an A for the semester, no matter what." Whispers rippled through the room like wind through tall grass. An automatic A in Hartwell's class. That had never happened. Not once. Not ever. But here's the catch. The whispers died instantly. If you try and fail, and you will fail, you drop 1 full letter grade, immediately, no appeals, no second chances. Silence, heavy and thick. Nobody moved. Nobody volunteered. Hartwell scanned the room slowly, his eyes moving from face to face, searching for something. Hunting. Then his gaze stopped. Back row, far corner. Isaiah. Mini cliffhanger. "Mr. Parker." Isaiah's stomach dropped like a stone into dark water. "Yes, sir?" "You've been very quiet this semester, sitting back there doing the bare minimum, almost like you're hiding something." A few students turned around, staring, judging, waiting for entertainment. "Stand up." Isaiah stood slowly. His legs felt weak. "Come to the front. Let's see what you've really got." Isaiah walked forward, each step heavier than the last. He could feel 40 pairs of eyes on his back, 40 students watching, waiting for him to fail, expecting it. Hartwell handed him the chalk. Their fingers touched for a brief moment. Hartwell's skin was cold, unnaturally cold. "This is an equation from a 1986 paper. Mathematicians have worked on it for decades. PhD students have tried and failed. Professors have tried and failed. Nobody has solved it." He leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper that only Isaiah could hear. "Between you and me, I don't think you'll last 30 seconds. Then louder, for the class, for the performance. 5 minutes, Mr. Parker. Impress me, or drop my class today." Mini cliffhanger. Hartwell turned to the board and started writing. The equation that would destroy his career. The equation that would expose everything. The chalk squeaked against the blackboard, numbers and symbols spreading across the surface like a virus. It was complex, layered, the kind of problem that made experienced mathematicians sweat. A modified Diophantine equation. Variables tangled together like a puzzle designed by someone cruel. Notation that most undergraduates wouldn't even recognize. Hartwell stepped back, admired his work, crossed his arms over his chest. "Your 5 minutes starts now." Isaiah stared at the board. His heart should have been pounding. His hands should have been shaking. Every instinct should have told him to surrender. Say he couldn't do it. Sit back down, survive another day, but something else was happening. Something stirring in the back of his mind. A memory. A recognition. He'd seen this equation before, mini cliffhanger, in a notebook, with his father's handwriting, dated October 1994. The world narrowed, the classroom disappeared, the watching students faded to nothing. All Isaiah could see was the board. All he could hear was his father's voice echoing across 24 years. "Numbers don't lie, son. People do." His father had worked on this exact problem, in those notebooks that nobody else had ever seen, and in the margin, written in that familiar handwriting, 3 words that changed everything. Solved. Method C. Isaiah remembered the solution. Every step, every transformation, every elegant twist that made the impossible possible. He raised the chalk to the board. "What are you doing?" Hartwell laughed. "Don't embarrass yourself, Mr. Parker. Just admit you can't do it." Isaiah started writing. His hand moved with certainty. Numbers flowing from the chalk like water from a spring. Symbols aligning in perfect order. His approach was unconventional. Nothing like the textbook methods. Nothing like anything Hartwell had ever seen. Because it wasn't from a textbook. It was from a dead man's notebook. A method that had never been published, never been shared. Until now. Mini cliffhanger. Hartwell's smile disappeared like smoke in wind. 30 seconds, someone whispered. Isaiah kept writing. One student leaned forward in their seat, then another. Something was happening. Something unexpected, something impossible. 60 seconds. The board was filling up, the solution taking shape like a sculpture emerging from stone. Hartwell stepped closer, his face going pale, his eyes scanning the work with growing horror. "That method, that's not, where did you—" Isaiah didn't respond, didn't slow down, didn't look back. 90 seconds. He set down the chalk, stepped back, turned around. Done. Mini cliffhanger. 94 seconds. That's how long it took Isaiah Parker to solve an equation that had stumped professional mathematicians for 40 years. The classroom was frozen. Time itself seemed to stop. Hartwell stared at the board, his eyes moving across the solution. Checking. Rechecking. Looking desperately for a mistake, an error, anything. There wasn't one. The solution was complete. Correct. Elegant. Beautiful. "That's not possible." Hartwell's voice cracked like old wood. "That's not. You couldn't have—" "It's correct, sir." Isaiah's voice was steady, calm. "You can verify it." One student started clapping, then another, then more. The sound building like thunder. "Stop." Hartwell raised his hand sharply. "Everyone stop." The applause died. But the damage was done. A 19-year-old black student from the South Side had just solved what a tenured professor with 23 years of authority couldn't, in front of 40 witnesses. Hartwell spun around, face red, hands trembling with rage or fear, or both. "Where did you learn that method? That approach isn't in any textbook. It's not in any published literature I've ever seen." "My father taught me." The words hung in the air like smoke. "Your father?" Something flickered behind Hartwell's eyes. Something dark. "Who is your father?" "His name was James Parker. He died when I was 6 years old." For 1 second, just one, Hartwell's mask shattered completely. Fear, recognition, horror, Something that looked almost like panic. Then it was gone, replaced by ice. Class dismissed. Everyone out, now. Students grabbed their bags, rushed for the door, confused, excited, already pulling out phones to text friends about what they'd just witnessed. Isaiah didn't move. Mr. Parker. Hartwell's voice was barely controlled. You'll be hearing from me. Mini cliffhanger. Word spread like wildfire through campus. By dinner, half of Whitmore was talking about it, the story growing with each retelling. Did you hear? Some sophomore solved Hartwell's impossible equation. In under 2 minutes, made the old man lose his mind. A black kid from Chicago, never said a word all semester, then boom! Students who'd never taken a math class in their lives were discussing it. Isaiah Parker, the quiet one from the back row, the guy who made Richard Hartwell look like a fool. Isaiah wanted nothing to do with any of it. He went back to his apartment, locked the door, pulled the blinds, tried to become invisible again. It didn't work. His phone kept buzzing. Messages from classmates he'd never talked to, friend requests from people he didn't know. Everyone wanted a piece of him now. He ignored them all. What he couldn't ignore was the feeling in his gut, the sick certainty that something was very wrong. The way Hartwell had looked at him when he said his father's name. That wasn't surprise. That was recognition. That was fear. Mini cliffhanger. 2 days later, Isaiah learned why. The email arrived at exactly 3:47 in the afternoon. Subject line, academic integrity violation, immediate meeting required. Isaiah read it 3 times. Each time the words hit harder. Academic integrity violation. That meant cheating. That meant expulsion. That meant everything he'd worked for, everything he'd sacrificed, everything his mother had sacrificed. Gone. He walked into Hartwell's office at 4 o'clock. Sharp. On time. The door closed behind him like a coffin lid sealing shut. Hartwell sat behind his desk. Calm, controlled, a stack of papers arranged perfectly in front of him. Sit down, Mr. Parker. Isaiah sat. The chair was uncomfortable, probably on purpose. Let me be direct with you. Hartwell's voice was smooth, professional, the voice of a man who'd done this before. Your performance in my classroom 2 days ago has raised serious concerns. Concerns? Your solution to that equation was too perfect, too fast, too sophisticated for someone of your background. Isaiah felt heat rising in his chest. My background? Let me put it plainly. Hartwell leaned forward. No sophomore solves a problem like that in 90 seconds. Not without help. Not without cheating. I didn't cheat. Then explain it. Explain how a 19-year-old from the south side of Chicago, working night shifts at a warehouse, barely scraping by on financial aid, somehow solves a problem that defeated professional mathematicians for 40 years. Mini cliffhanger. Isaiah kept his voice steady, but inside he was shaking. I told you in class, my father taught me. Ah, yes, your father. The dead mathematician. Hartwell's lips curled. Convenient, isn't it? A witness who can never be questioned. It's the truth. Here's what I think is the truth, Mr. Parker. Hartwell pulled a document from the stack. I think you found that solution somewhere. Online, in an old journal, somewhere. You memorized it, waited for your moment, and played the hero in front of my class. He slid the document across the desk with one finger. This is a formal academic integrity complaint. I'm filing it with the dean's office today. Isaiah looked at the paper. His name at the top, words like fraud and misconduct scattered throughout like landmines. You have 2 weeks to prove you didn't cheat. Hartwell smiled. Cold. Calculated. If you can't, and let's be honest, you can't, you'll be expelled, permanently. Your transcript marked forever. Your future. He paused. Well, let's just say you might want to keep that warehouse job. Isaiah's hands clenched into fists under the table, but his voice stayed calm. I learned that method from my father's notebooks. He was a mathematician. He worked on that exact problem. Something flickered in Hartwell's eyes. Just for a moment. Your father's notebooks? Yes. And what was your father's name again? James Parker. Mini cliffhanger. The flicker became a crack, Hartwell's mask slipping for just a second. I've never heard of him. Hartwell's voice was too quick, too defensive. He studied mathematics. He was brilliant. Everyone said, I said I've never heard of him. Hartwell stood abruptly. This meeting is over. You'll receive formal notice of the hearing within 48 hours. He walked to the door, opened it. I suggest you withdraw now. Save yourself the humiliation of a public expulsion. Because that's what's coming, Mr. Parker. I guarantee it. Isaiah stood. His legs felt weak, but he held Hartwell's gaze. I didn't cheat, and I'm not withdrawing. Then you're a fool. Hartwell stopped himself, but not fast enough. Just like who? Isaiah asked. Get out of my office. Isaiah left. But as he walked down the hallway, one thought consumed him. Just like who? Hartwell knew something about his father, about the past, something he was desperate to keep buried. Mini cliffhanger. That night, Isaiah made a phone call that unlocked everything. Mom, I need to ask you something about Dad. Silence on the other end. Long. Heavy. The kind of silence that carries 24 years of pain. Why are you bringing this up now, Isaiah? Because a professor at Whitmore is trying to expel me. He's accusing me of cheating. And when I said Dad's name... Isaiah paused. He looked terrified, like he'd seen a ghost. More silence. Then a sound Isaiah hadn't heard in years. His mother crying. What's the professor's name? Her voice was shaking. Hartwell, Richard Hartwell. A sharp intake of breath. A muffled sob. Mom? What is it? What happened? Come home this weekend, Isaiah. Her voice was breaking. There are things I should have told you a long time ago. Things about your father. Things about that man. What things? Not over the phone. Please, come home. The line went dead. Isaiah sat in his apartment, his father's notebooks surrounding him, the handwriting he'd memorized, the equations he'd studied for 6 years. He opened the oldest one, the first page, faded pencil. Whitmore University, fall 1994. His father had studied here, at this university, in this department, 24 years ago. He flipped through the pages, searching. Near the back, a page torn out. Only fragments remained, but one word was visible. Hartwell. Mini cliffhanger. Whatever happened between them, it had destroyed his father's life. And now it was threatening to destroy his. Isaiah drove home that weekend, 4 hours through rain and empty highways. His mother was waiting at the kitchen table, a cardboard box in front of her. The box Isaiah had never been allowed to open. I kept this hidden. Linda Parker's voice was barely a whisper. I thought if you never knew, you'd be safe. Safe from what, Mom? She opened the box slowly. Inside, letters, documents, photographs. A young man with Isaiah's eyes, Isaiah's smile, a face he barely remembered. Your father was a student at Whitmore 24 years ago. Linda's hands trembled as she spoke. He was the most brilliant mathematician in his program. Everyone said he'd change the world. What happened to him? His advisor happened. She pulled out a letter, yellow with age, dated February 1995. Dear Mr. Parker, following the investigation into academic misconduct, Your enrollment at Whitmore University is hereby terminated. Isaiah read the signature at the bottom. His blood ran cold. Richard Hartwell, department chair. Hartwell was Dad's advisor. More than that. His mother wiped her eyes. Your father developed a solution, a breakthrough, the same equation you solved in that classroom. He was going to publish it, make his name, change everything. And Hartwell stole it. Yes. Linda's voice broke. He took James's work, published it under his own name in 1995, built his entire career on it, and when your father tried to fight back, tried to prove it was his work, he accused Dad of plagiarism. His own work, Isaiah. Hartwell said your father copied from him. The university believed the tenured professor over the young black graduate student. No real investigation, no fair hearing, just destruction. Mini cliffhanger. Isaiah felt the room spinning. But there was one more question. The question he'd been afraid to ask his entire life. How did Dad die, Mom? Linda couldn't look at him. Please, I need to know. You were 6 years old. Her voice cracked. He tried to move on, got a job, married me, had you. But the injustice ate at him. The knowledge that his life's work had someone else's name on it. She finally met his eyes. He left a note, said he couldn't fight anymore, said the system had won, and then he... She couldn't finish. Isaiah understood. His father hadn't just died. He'd been killed. Slowly, deliberately, by a man who stole his work, destroyed his reputation, and walked away clean. And that man was still teaching, still powerful, still destroying students, now trying to destroy Isaiah. I'm not going to let him win again, Mom. Isaiah, please, just transfer, walk away. Don't let him do to you what he did to your father. Isaiah shook his head. Dad walked away. He gave up, and it killed him. He stood, determination hardening in his chest like steel. I'm going to finish what he started, and I'm going to make Richard Hartwell pay for every life he destroyed. Mini cliffhanger. The next 2 weeks were the worst of Isaiah's life. He filed his appeal. The university required new evidence, evidence that Hartwell had spent 24 years burying. The Academic Integrity Office gave him 14 days. 2 weeks to prove he wasn't a cheater. 2 weeks to expose a crime older than he was. It was never going to be enough. The whispers started immediately. That's the kid who cheated in Hartwell's class. Heard he stole the solution from somewhere online. Typical affirmative action fraud. They always get caught eventually. Students who'd never spoken to Isaiah suddenly had opinions about him. His study group stopped responding to messages. His lab partner requested a transfer. Professors who'd smiled at him before now looked through him like glass. The warehouse where he worked gave him extra shifts. Since you'll have more time soon, his manager said with a knowing smirk. Heard you're having some trouble at school. Isaiah didn't ask how he'd heard. Bad news traveled fast, especially when someone powerful was spreading it. He stopped going to class. What was the point? Every lecture felt like a trial, every professor a potential witness against him. Mini cliffhanger. He spent his nights alone, surrounded by his father's notebooks, the notebooks that had taught him everything, the notebooks that had raised him, the notebooks that nobody believed were real. How do you prove a dead man's work is authentic? How do you fight a system designed to protect the powerful? Isaiah didn't know. And every day, his hearing got closer. Then came the letter that nearly broke him completely. Dear Mr. Parker, your appeal hearing has been scheduled for November 28th at 9:15 a.m. November 28th, the day after Thanksgiving. Please note this date falls during academic break. Faculty advocates and student representatives may have limited availability. Isaiah read it 5 times. Each time the message got clearer. They'd scheduled his hearing during a holiday, when the campus was empty, when witnesses wouldn't be around, when no one would be watching. This wasn't justice. This was an execution. Mini cliffhanger. Isaiah tried to fight back. He called everyone he could think of. The Academic Integrity Office, closed for the holiday, the Student Advocacy Center, voicemail, legal aid. We'll call you back after the break. The Dean's office. The schedule is non-negotiable due to the serious nature of the allegations. Every door closed, every avenue blocked, every hope crushed. Isaiah sat in his apartment, the walls closing in. His father's notebooks spread around him like tombstones. For the first time, he understood why his father gave up, why he couldn't fight anymore, why he'd written that final note. The system wasn't broken. It was designed this way, built to protect people like Hartwell, built to crush people like James Parker, like Isaiah. Maybe Mom was right, he whispered to the empty room. Maybe I should just walk away. Mini cliffhanger, that's when he found the envelope, at the bottom of his father's box, underneath everything else, a sealed envelope, yellowed with age. To Isaiah, when he's old enough. His father's handwriting, the same handwriting from the notebooks. Isaiah's hands shook as he opened it. Son, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry. I couldn't be stronger. They took everything from me. My work, my name, my future, my will to fight. Tears blurred Isaiah's vision. But they couldn't take you. And they couldn't take what's in your blood. You have the gift. I saw it when you were just a baby. The way your eyes followed patterns. The way you reached for my notebooks before you could even walk. Isaiah kept reading, his father's voice reaching across 24 years. One day you'll be better than I ever was, and when they come for you, because they will, don't make my mistake. Don't disappear. Don't give them the satisfaction. The next words hit him like a fist. Fight, even when it hurts, even when you're alone, even when you're scared, even when the whole world says you can't win. Fight, because giving up isn't peace. It's just another kind of death. Isaiah held the letter to his chest. His father had known. Even before Isaiah was born, he'd known this day would come. Mini cliffhanger, and he'd told Isaiah exactly what to do. Isaiah didn't sleep that night. Instead, he worked, organizing his father's notebooks, dating every page, cross-referencing every equation with Hartwell's publications. The pattern was undeniable. James Parker's work, 1994. Hartwell's publication, 1995. Same equations, same methods, same solutions. The dates proved everything. His father came first. Hartwell was the thief. But Isaiah knew the evidence alone wasn't enough. Not against a tenured professor with 23 years of institutional protection. Not in a system designed to bury people like him. He needed someone inside. Someone with credentials. Someone Hartwell couldn't silence. Isaiah opened his laptop. Searched the Whitmore faculty directory. Looking for an ally in enemy territory. One name caught his attention. Dr. Lydia Moore, Associate Professor of Applied Mathematics, MIT PhD, one of 3 black faculty members at Whitmore, the only one in the mathematics department. He'd heard stories about her. She didn't play politics, didn't protect the old guard, had a reputation for fighting battles others wouldn't touch. Isaiah looked at the clock. 5:47 a.m. Too early to call, but not too early to email. He started typing. Dr. Moore, my name is Isaiah Parker. You don't know me, but I need your help. Professor Hartwell is accusing me of cheating, but I have evidence that he's been hiding something for 24 years, something about my father, James Parker. Please, you're my last hope. He hit send. Then he waited. Minutes turned to hours. Hours turned to forever. Mini cliffhanger. Dr. Lydia Moore was 48 years old, MIT PhD, published in journals that most mathematicians only dreamed about. She'd survived 20 years in academia by being twice as good and 3 times as careful. She knew which battles to pick. She knew when to speak and when to stay silent. For 24 years, she'd stayed silent about James Parker. Not anymore. Dr. Moore's office was small, books everywhere, degrees on the wall, a single photograph on her desk, a group of young graduate students smiling at the camera. "Close the door," she said when Isaiah arrived. "And sit down." Isaiah sat. "Tell me everything, from the beginning. Don't leave anything out." Isaiah talked for 30 minutes straight. The equation, the humiliation, the accusation, his father's notebooks, the letter from 1995, everything. Dr. Moore listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. When Isaiah finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she pointed to the photograph on her desk. "You see that man? Second from the left." Isaiah looked. A young black man, brilliant smile, eyes full of hope. "That's your father, James Parker. We were in the same doctoral program, 1994. Isaiah's heart stopped. "You knew him?" "I knew him well." Dr. Moore's voice was soft. "He was the most talented mathematician I'd ever met. Everyone said he'd change the field forever." Her voice dropped. "And then Hartwell destroyed him." Mini cliffhanger. "You saw what happened?" "I saw everything." Dr. Moore stood, walked to her window, her back to Isaiah. "Your father developed something extraordinary, a solution to a problem that had stumped mathematicians for decades. It was going to be his masterpiece, his ticket to everything. The equation Hartwell made me solve. The same one." She turned around. "Hartwell was his advisor, had access to all of James's work, knew exactly what he was developing. And he stole it. Published it under his own name, 1995, built his entire career on it, got tenure, got famous, got rich." Her voice hardened. "And when your father tried to fight back, tried to prove the work was his, Hartwell accused him of plagiarism. His own work. His own work." Dr. Moore's voice cracked. "And the university believed the tenured white professor over the young black graduate student. No investigation, no fair hearing, just destruction." Isaiah felt rage building in his chest. "You were there. You could have said something." "I know." Dr. Moore's voice was barely a whisper. "I was 22 years old, a black woman trying to survive in a department that barely tolerated my existence. Speaking up meant losing everything." She met his eyes. "I've carried that guilt for 24 years. I wake up thinking about it, go to sleep thinking about it. Every time Hartwell walks past me in the hallway, I remember what I didn't do." Mini cliffhanger. "Why are you helping me now?" "Because I'm tired of being a coward." Dr. Moore sat back down. "And because you have something your father never had." "What?" "Proof that can't be ignored." She pulled a folder from her desk drawer. "After you emailed me, I did some digging. University archives, department records, things Hartwell thought he'd buried forever." She opened the folder. Spread documents across the desk. "This is a research proposal your father submitted to the department in October 1994. It describes the exact methodology that Hartwell published in 1995. Isaiah stared at the papers. His father's name, his father's work, others dated before Hartwell's publication. "And this." Dr. Moore pulled out another document. "This is a formal complaint your father filed in February 1995, alleging that Hartwell stole his research." Isaiah read it. His father's words, his father's pain, preserved on paper for 24 years. "The complaint was dismissed. Insufficient evidence. Your father was expelled 2 weeks later." Mini cliffhanger. "So Hartwell has done this before," Isaiah said. and gotten away with it for 24 years. But here's the thing. Dr. Moore leaned forward. Your father's notebooks, if we can prove they're authentic, that they weren't fabricated, then Hartwell's entire defense collapses. How do we prove that? We don't. We get someone else to prove it, someone whose credentials are so impeccable that the university can't ignore them. She picked up her phone. My doctoral advisor, Dr. Benjamin Crawford, MIT Emeritus, Fields Medal nominee, the most respected mathematician in the country. If he says your abilities are real, nobody can argue. Will he help? I don't know. He's 71, semi-retired, doesn't take meetings. She started dialing. But for something like this, for a chance to right a 24-year wrong, he might make an exception. The phone rang once, twice. A voice answered. Isaiah couldn't hear the conversation. Just Dr. Moore's side. Benjamin, it's Lydia. Yes, I know it's been a while. I need a favor. A big one. Academic fraud. 24 years old. The victim's son. Yes, I'm certain. His name is Parker. James Parker's son. Silence on the other end. Then Dr. Moore smiled. Thank you. I'll send everything tonight. She hung up. Dr. Crawford is assembling a panel. 3 mathematicians. Independent evaluation. You have 48 hours to prepare. Isaiah felt hope for the first time in weeks. What's the catch? One of the panel members, Dr. Gregory Sullivan from Princeton. He was at Whitmore in 1994. Isaiah's blood ran cold. He knew my father. Possibly. They were in the same program. Dr. Moore's expression darkened. He might be a witness, or he might be another one of Hartwell's allies. I don't know which. Isaiah stood. 48 hours, 3 mathematicians, 1 chance. Dr. Moore nodded. If you pass their test, the plagiarism charge collapses. If you fail... She didn't need to finish. Isaiah knew exactly what was at stake. Mini cliffhanger. November 26th, 9 o'clock in the morning, a conference room in downtown Whitmore. Neutral ground, no university administrators, no Hartwell, just 3 mathematicians and Isaiah. The panel sat at a long table. Isaiah faced them alone. Dr. Benjamin Crawford, 71 years old, MIT Emeritus, Fields Medal nominee. White hair, sharp eyes, the kind of presence that made everyone else in the room feel smaller. Dr. Catherine Reynolds, 55, Stanford, cryptography expert, known for her brutal honesty and zero tolerance for excuses. Dr. Gregory Sullivan, 62, Princeton, number theory. And, Isaiah now knew, a Whitmore graduate from 1995, the year his father was destroyed. Sullivan's face was unreadable. Friend or enemy, Isaiah couldn't tell. Dr. Crawford spoke first. Mr. Parker, you understand the purpose of this evaluation. Yes, sir. We're here to determine if your mathematical abilities are genuine, if you solved that equation through skill or through fraud. Crawford's voice was cold. Clinical. We have no stake in the outcome. We're not here to save you or condemn you. We're here for the truth. Isaiah nodded. Good. Then let's begin. 3 problems. Graduate level, the kind that separated students from scholars. Isaiah picked up his pencil. For a moment, his hand trembled. The weight of everything pressing down, his father's legacy, his own future. 24 years of buried truth. Then he heard the voice, his father's voice, the fragment he'd carried since childhood. Numbers don't lie, son. People do. His hand steadied. He began to write. Mini cliffhanger. The first problem, elliptic curves, graduate level difficulty, the kind of problem that required deep understanding, not just memorization. Expected time, 90 minutes. Isaiah found an elegant shortcut, a method that wasn't in any textbook, a method from his father's notebooks, 43 minutes. Dr. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. made a note. The second problem, modular arithmetic with cryptographic applications, more complex, more demanding. Isaiah found another approach, unconventional, beautiful, 1 hour 8 minutes. Dr. Crawford leaned forward, watching intently. The third problem, open-ended proof construction. No right answer, just demonstration of mathematical thinking. This was where most students failed, where raw talent mattered more than memorization. Isaiah closed his eyes, thought of his father's approach, sideways, unexpected, elegant. He opened his eyes and wrote. 3 hours and 22 minutes after they began, Isaiah set down his pencil. Done. The panel collected his work, conferred in whispers. Isaiah sat motionless, his fate in their hands. Dr. Sullivan studied the pages longest, his expression troubled, not suspicious. Something else, something that looked almost like guilt. Finally, Dr. Crawford spoke. We'll need 30 minutes to review. Wait outside. Isaiah walked into the hallway. Dr. Moore was waiting. How did it go? I don't know. His voice was hollow. I did my best. That's all you can do. They waited. 30 minutes became 45, then an hour. Every second felt like a verdict. Mini cliffhanger. Then the door opened. Dr. Sullivan stood there, alone, with something to say. Mr. Parker, can I speak with you privately? Dr. Moore tensed. Whatever you have to say. Please. Sullivan's voice cracked. This is personal. Isaiah followed him to a corner of the hallway, away from the door, away from ears. Sullivan couldn't meet his eyes. I knew your father. Isaiah's heart stopped. We were in the same program, 1994. He was... Sullivan swallowed. He was the best of us, the most brilliant mathematician I'd ever met. Everyone knew he was going to do something extraordinary. What happened? Hartwell happened. Sullivan's hands were shaking. Your father developed a solution, revolutionary work, and Hartwell stole it, claimed it as his own. You knew? Everyone knew. Sullivan finally looked up. His eyes were wet. When Hartwell accused your father of plagiarism, we all knew it was a lie. But Hartwell had power, tenure, connections, and we were scared. Isaiah felt rage building. You let him destroy my father. Yes, Sullivan's voice broke. I've carried that guilt for 24 years. I told myself it wasn't my business, that your father must have done something wrong. But I knew. I always knew. He reached into his jacket, pulled out an envelope. This is my written statement, everything I witnessed, everything I should have said in 1994. Isaiah took the envelope, his hands trembling. Why now? Because I saw you in that room. I saw you solve those problems, and I realized... Sullivan wiped his eyes. You're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for him. For a man who deserved better. A man we all failed. He straightened up. I'm changing my assessment, and I'm testifying against Hartwell. Mini cliffhanger. Isaiah held the envelope, a confession 24 years in the making. But would it be enough? The door opened again. Dr. Crawford emerged. Mr. Parker, we're ready. Isaiah walked back in, Dr. Moore beside him, Sullivan taking his seat with the others. Dr. Crawford held Isaiah's test papers. Mr. Parker, in 43 years of mathematics, I have evaluated thousands of students, from MIT, Princeton, Cambridge, the finest institutions in the world. He paused. Your work today is exceptional. Problem 1, completed in half the expected time. Problem 2, you used a method I've only seen in advanced research. Problem 3, your proof construction shows original thinking at a professional level. Isaiah held his breath. It is my professional opinion that you are not a fraud. You are a genuine mathematical talent. Dr. Reynolds nodded. Agreed. The accusations against you are baseless. Dr. Sullivan stood. And I am prepared to provide testimony regarding events I witnessed in 1994. Events that explain how Professor Hartwell obtained the work he has claimed as his own for 24 years. Isaiah exhaled, the first real breath he'd taken in weeks. Dr. Crawford looked directly at him. Mr. Parker, your father would be proud. Mini cliffhanger. November 28th, 9 o'clock in the morning, University Administration Building. The hearing room was cold, formal, designed to intimidate. On one side, Isaiah, Dr. Moore, and a stack of evidence. On the other, Professor Richard Hartwell, confident, smiling, certain of victory. He didn't know what was coming. This is a simple case. Hartwell's voice was smooth, practiced. Mr. Parker submitted a solution that no undergraduate could possibly derive independently. He refuses to explain how he obtained it. The only logical conclusion is academic dishonesty. He spread his hands. I take no pleasure in this, but Whitmore has standards, and those standards must be maintained. The dean turned to Isaiah. Mr. Parker, your response? Isaiah stood, his voice steady. I didn't cheat. I couldn't have. Because the method I used came from my father's notebooks. Notebooks dated 1994, a full year before Professor Hartwell published the same solution under his own name. Hartwell's smile flickered. Objection. Those notebooks could have been fabricated. Then explain this. Dr. Moore stood, placed a document on the table. This is a research proposal submitted by James Parker to the Whitmore Mathematics Department in October 1994. It describes the exact methodology that Professor Hartwell published in 1995. She placed another document beside it. This is a formal complaint filed by James Parker in February 1995, alleging that his advisor, Professor Hartwell, stole his work and claimed credit. Hartwell's face went pale. Those documents are irrelevant. James Parker was a proven plagiarist who... James Parker was my father. Isaiah's voice cut through the room. And he didn't plagiarize anyone. He was the victim. Mini cliffhanger. Dr. Moore continued. We have independent verification of Mr. Parker's abilities. 3 mathematicians, Dr. Benjamin Crawford of MIT, Dr. Catherine Reynolds of Stanford, and Dr. Gregory Sullivan of Princeton. All 3 evaluated him 2 days ago. She produced their written assessments. All 3 concluded that Isaiah Parker is a genuine mathematical talent. All 3 stated that the plagiarism accusation is baseless. Hartwell was sweating now. Those evaluations prove nothing about where he learned. There's more. Dr. Moore's voice hardened. Dr. Sullivan has provided a sworn statement. She slid the document across the table. Sullivan's confession. Dr. Sullivan was a graduate student at Whitmore in 1994. He witnessed Professor Hartwell take credit for James Parker's work. He witnessed the false accusations. He witnessed the cover-up. Hartwell stood abruptly. This is hearsay. Sullivan is lying. He was never... Sit down, Professor Hartwell. The dean's voice was ice. You'll have your chance to respond. Hartwell sat, his hands trembling. Isaiah stepped forward. My father was 21 years old when Professor Hartwell destroyed his life. He was accused of stealing his own work, expelled, blacklisted. He never recovered. His voice cracked. He took his own life when I was 6 years old, because of what this man did to him. Isaiah pointed at Hartwell. And now, 24 years later, he tried to do the same thing to me, because I walked into his classroom, because I solved an equation, because he couldn't stand that a black kid from the South Side knew something he never could. Dr. Crawford's video testimony played on the screen. I have reviewed Isaiah Parker's work extensively. His abilities are extraordinary. His methods align precisely with the research documented in his father's notebooks, research that predates Professor Hartwell's published work by over a year. Crawford looked directly into the camera. It is my professional opinion that Professor Richard Hartwell has built his career on stolen work, and his accusation against Isaiah Parker is not just false, it is a continuation of fraud that began 24 years ago. The video ended. The room was silent. The dean looked at Hartwell. "Professor Hartwell, do you have anything to say?" Hartwell opened his mouth, closed it. For the first time in 23 years, he had nothing. The dean nodded. "The charge of academic dishonesty against Isaiah Parker is dismissed, effective immediately." Pause. "And an investigation will be opened into Professor Richard Hartwell regarding allegations of research misconduct, fraudulent accusations, and abuse of academic authority." Isaiah exhaled. 24 years, finally. Justice. Mini cliffhanger. But before the hearing adjourned, Isaiah stood one last time. "I didn't come here for revenge." He looked at Hartwell, the man who had killed his father slowly, who had tried to do the same to him. "I came here for my father's name." His voice was steady now, certain. James Parker was a brilliant mathematician. He was 21 years old when his life was stolen. His work was taken, his reputation destroyed, his name erased. Isaiah held up his father's notebook. He deserved to be remembered, not as a fraud, not as a cautionary tale, but as what he really was, a genius who changed mathematics, even if nobody knew it. He set the notebook on the table. That changes today. The investigation took 3 months. 4 cases of research misconduct confirmed. 3 former students came forward with similar stories. 2 decades of stolen work exposed. Hartwell's tenure was revoked. Not resigned, stripped. His publications were flagged across journals. His awards rescinded. His name removed from the scholarship he'd founded. He wasn't fired. What happened was worse. He was erased. From journals, from conferences, from the department he'd ruled for 23 years. The last anyone heard, he was teaching remedial math at a community college 2 states away, making $40,000 a year, living in a 1-bedroom apartment. He'd tried to make Isaiah invisible. Now he was the one nobody wanted to see. Mini cliffhanger. Whitmore University officially credited James Parker as the original author of the 1995 paper. The Association of American Mathematicians issued a formal correction. 24 years of lies undone in a single statement. A scholarship was established in his name. The James Parker Mathematics Scholarship. Funding first-generation college students. Kids from the South Side. Kids from Section 8 housing. Kids like Isaiah. In the spring, Isaiah published his first paper. The Impossible Equation solved his way. The dedication read, "For my father, James Parker, who solved this first, who taught me that numbers don't lie, and who deserved so much more than he got." Dr. Moore was promoted to department chair 2 years later, the first black woman to hold the position at Whitmore. Dr. Sullivan donated his entire savings to the James Parker Scholarship. Penance, he called it, for 24 years of silence. Whitmore created an independent review board for academic integrity cases. No more closed-door hearings, no more holiday scheduling, no more tenured professors judging their own victims, mandatory bias training for all faculty, anonymous reporting systems for students. 3 other universities adopted similar policies, citing the Parker case, 1 student, 1 equation, 1 family's buried truth, and a system that would never work quite the same way again. Mini cliffhanger. Isaiah's mother framed the newspaper article, hung it in the living room. Local student exposes decades of academic fraud, father's legacy restored. Below it, she placed a photograph, the one from the box. James Parker at 21, smiling, full of hope, finally seen. A year later, Isaiah stood in front of a classroom. Not as a student, as a teaching assistant. Same room where Hartwell had tried to humiliate him. Same board where he'd solved the impossible equation. Different energy now. In the back row, a black sophomore sat alone. Quiet. Invisible. Just like Isaiah used to be. After class, Isaiah approached him. "You're good at this. I've seen your problem sets." The student looked surprised. "You noticed?" "Someone always notices." Isaiah smiled. "Sometimes they try to tear you down, but sometimes they're there to lift you up." He handed the student a notebook, a copy of his father's work. "This helped me. Maybe it'll help you." Mini cliffhanger. Here's what this story is really about. It's not about mathematics, it's about power. Who has it, who doesn't, and what happens when someone with power decides you don't belong. Richard Hartwell looked at Isaiah and saw a target. A black kid from the South Side. Someone to mock, to humiliate, to destroy. He didn't see a prodigy. He didn't see a legacy. He didn't see a son carrying his dead father's dream. He didn't know who he was dealing with. And that's the thing about underestimating people. Eventually, they prove you wrong. Hartwell learned that the hard way. 23 years of lies. 23 years of stolen brilliance. All of it undone in 94 seconds by a student he thought didn't belong. Maybe someone looked at you and decided you didn't fit. Made you feel invisible. Told you, directly or not, that you weren't good enough because of your skin color, your background, your accent, your neighborhood. Maybe you're still waiting for your 94 seconds. Here's what I want you to know. It's coming. The people who underestimate you, they don't know what you carry, what you've survived, what you're capable of. They see your surface. They don't see your depth. Keep going. Keep fighting. And when your moment comes, make them learn the hard way. So let me ask you, have you ever been underestimated because of how you looked or where you came from? What happened? Have you ever had a Hartwell in your life? Someone who tried to make you feel small? Is there a James Parker in your story? Someone whose truth deserves to be told? Drop your answers in the comments. Tell me your story. The best ones might become future episodes. And if this story moved you, if it made you angry or hopeful, or reminded you of your own fight, share it. Share it with someone who's been underestimated, someone who's fighting to be seen, someone who needs to know that the truth has a way of coming out, even if it takes 24 years. Subscribe to channel, because justice isn't given, it's taken. And remember this, a professor didn't know the black student in his class was a math prodigy. He wrote an impossible equation to mock him, to humiliate him, to prove that kids like him don't belong. 94 seconds later, he learned exactly who he was dealing with. The hard way. This has been Channel. Stay just, stay loud, stay free. This story shouldn't be the exception. It should be the last time it ever happens. At Channel, we turn one moment of injustice into a call for change. Subscribe to help make that call louder and longer lasting, because the next Isaiah Parker is out there right now, sitting in the back row, staying invisible, waiting for their moment. And when it comes, we'll be there to tell their story.